The galaxy once believed that humanity was weak. Humans were new to space, slow to expand, and often argued among themselves. Other species watched them from a distance and judged them as soft. Humans traded more than they fought. Their ships were simple, their weapons were average, and their borders were thin. Many thought that if war ever came, humans would bend and break quickly. On the outer edge of human space, there was a quiet colony world. It was a blue and green planet with wide oceans and calm skies. People lived simple lives there. They farmed, repaired ships, raised families, and sent messages back to Earth and other core worlds. The colony had no great defenses. There was no reason for them. No one believed the war would start there. June stood inside the local command station, looking at a star map. He was not a famous commander. He had been sent to the colony because it was peaceful. His job was to watch shipping lanes and make sure pirates stayed away. Most days were quiet. Too quiet, some said. June thought that silence was a gift. Hannah worked in the lower levels of the colony. She was an engineer who fixed power systems and life support. She liked machines because they were honest. If something broke, there was a reason. You fixed it, and it worked again. People were harder. Politics was harder. That was why she chose the edge of space. The first warning came as a small signal glitch. Sensors showed a ripple, then nothing. June frowned and asked for a system check. The operators ran scans again and again. Everything looked normal. 2 normal dot minutes later, the sky-burned dot ships appeared without warning. Massive shapes tore through space like dark scars. They did not hail. They did not speak. They opened fire. The first shots hit the orbital platforms. Metal shattered. Fire spread in silent waves. The colony defense grid tried to respond, but it was slow and weak. It was never meant for this. Alien weapons cut through shields like paper. On the ground, Hannah felt the floor shake. Lights went out. Alarms screamed. She ran with others through narrow halls as the ceiling cracked above them. People shouted names. Children cried. Smoke filled the air. June watched the tactical display turn red. Targets appeared everywhere. Too many. He ordered evacuation signals sent to civilian ships, but most never launched. The alien fleet moved with cold purpose. They struck cities, not just bases. Farms burned. Water processors exploded. There was no pattern of mercy. June realized then that this was not a raid. It was a message. Human ships fought back, but they were few. Each time one fell, another took its place, even when the odds made no sense. Pilots stayed in their cockpits after alarms told them to eject. They kept firing until their ships broke apart. On the surface, Hannah helped guide survivors into an underground shelter. The air was thin. Power flickered. She worked with shaking hands, fixing a broken seal while explosions echoed above. She thought of her sister on another world and hoped she would never see this. After hours that felt like years, the firing stopped. The alien ships left as suddenly as they had come. They did not occupy the planet. They did not claim it. They left it broken. Silence returned, but it was not the same silence as before. June walked through the ruins later. Smoke rose from the ground. Buildings lay flat like crushed bones. He saw bodies wrapped in emergency sheets, lined along the streets. He counted them without meaning to. His chest felt heavy, as if gravity itself had grown stronger. Hannah emerged from the shelter with others. Her face was pale, her clothes torn. She looked at the sky and felt anger rise where fear had been. This place had done nothing. It had asked for nothing. News of the attack spread fast. Across human space, screens lit up with images from the colony. Burning cities. Broken ships. Quiet rose of the dead. People stopped talking. Arguments ended. Old borders stopped mattering. Leaders met in emergency councils. Some spoke of surrender. Others spoke of defense. Then a voice from the outer system spoke, calm and firm. It said that this was not a war for land or pride. It was a war about choice. If humans accepted this, it would happen again. And again. Human history was long and painful. Humans had fought each other for centuries. They had learned hard lessons. They knew what happened when cruelty went unanswered. June was called back to the core worlds. He stood before admirals and officials and told them exactly what he had seen. Not numbers, not tactics. He spoke about farms turned to ash and pilots who stayed until the end. He spoke slowly, clearly, and without hate. When he finished, the room was silent. Hana joined a civilian task force. She worked day and night repairing ships meant to carry refugees. She redesigned power systems to keep running, even when damaged. She slept on the floor beside her tools. When asked why she worked so hard, she said that machines could be made stronger. People had to be. Factories shifted production. Trade ships became warships. Scientists shared secrets they once guarded. Old enemies shared tables. There were no parades. No speeches full of fire. Just quiet work. The alien coalition sent no explanation. They believed they had made their point. They believed fear would spread and humans would withdraw. They were wrong. Human fleets began to move. Slowly at first, then with purpose. Ships were built not to look powerful, but to survive pain. Hulls were thick. Systems were layered. Controls were simple, so they could be used even when half-destroyed. June watched the first new fleet leave dock. He felt no joy. Only resolve. Hana stood on a platform as engines ignited. The sound rolled through her bones. She thought of the quiet colony world and made herself a promise. This war would not be quick. It would not be clean. But it would be answered. Across the galaxy, distant observers noticed something change. Human space grew quiet again, but not with weakness. It was the quiet of something preparing to endure. The war had begun, but humanity did not rush forward in anger. It stepped forward with memory, patience, and a will shaped by loss. And far away, those who had struck the first blow did not yet understand what kind of answer they had awakened. The attack on the border colony had changed everything. Humans who had argued over small differences now worked together. Old rivalries were set aside. In the heart of human space, councils met not to debate trade or territory, but to decide how to fight and survive. Leaders called for unity, and for the first time, humans acted as one. June returned to the fleet command. He was older now in his thinking, though still young in body. He looked at new designs for ships, vessels meant to endure punishment, not simply to fire weapons. The fleet was reorganizing. Humans had realized that traditional tactics borrowed from alien methods would not work. Other species valued strategy over endurance. Humans valued survival and persistence. They would fight with a stubbornness no one had expected. Hyan, a fleet captain, walked the corridors of a new warship. Her steps were careful but confident. She ran simulations of enemy attacks, testing shields and hulls in ways no one had thought practical before. Each test taught her something. Each failure was a lesson. Hyan smiled in quiet satisfaction when the simulations failed, because it meant the ship was learning too. In the labs, Min-Su studied alien behavior. He was not a soldier, but a strategist. He examined how aliens responded to threats and discovered a pattern. Most gave up when pressured, and their armies broke when facing unexpected resilience. Humans would use this, not by trickery, but by refusing to yield, by enduring longer than their enemies thought possible. Hana worked in production facilities day and night. She supervised engineers, helping to convert old cargo ships into vessels that could fight. They added extra power cores, backup systems, and reinforced hulls. Nothing was perfect. Nothing would ever be perfect. But it was human, and that was enough. Humans could adapt. They could repair what others thought lost. They could fight again. The first engagement came quickly. A scouting fleet spotted alien raiders near a mining system. The human ships were outnumbered. They were smaller, slower, and less armed. Yet they held position. They refused to retreat. June commanded from the lead ship, his voice calm but firm over the comms. Orders were given not to strike with maximum force, but to endure and counter slowly, systematically. The aliens were confused. They expected humans to scatter. They did not. One ship took multiple hits and kept moving. Its crew patched the damage in real time. Another ship lost half its weapon systems, yet it fired with what remained. The battle lasted longer than expected, and in the end, humans withdrew not because they were defeated, but because they had learned enough about their enemy. Min-Su analyzed the battle later. He told June that humans had won in a way no one understood. They had taught the aliens that humans were unpredictable, that endurance was a weapon, that patience could defeat raw power. Meanwhile, across the war zones, civilian life had changed too. People trained for emergencies. Engineers, medics, and volunteers learned new skills. They repaired damaged ships, guided refugees, and reinforced colonies. Every human became part of the war effort, not as soldiers alone, but as contributors to the human will. Yuna, a medical officer, oversaw teams who treated wounded pilots. She watched people return to the fight despite injuries. Legs broken, arms crushed, burns covering their bodies, they came back. She asked them why they returned, why they did not rest. They answered simply, because if they did not fight, no one else would. Because survival demanded it. Because humans did not give up. The alien coalition began to notice. Reports came to their leaders describing human fleets that refused defeat. Ships that should have exploded continued moving. Pilots who should have surrendered stayed in the fight. Supplies that should have run out were replenished as if by miracle. Rumors spread among alien ranks. Humans were relentless. They were like a storm that could not be stopped. In one remote system, a human fleet trapped a small alien armada. It should have been an easy fight for the aliens. Instead, the humans endured attacks that seemed impossible. June directed his fleet calmly. He coordinated with Hyan, Min-Su, and others. Ships were damaged, but none broke completely. Each loss was replaced by another ship joining the formation. Each failed strike taught the humans what they could endure and how to counter. The aliens pulled back, stunned. Their calculations had failed. They began to fear that humans did not follow the rules they knew. No plan worked because humans were not predictable. They were dangerous, not because of weapons alone, but because they could survive anything and keep moving forward. At a distant colony, Hana watched shipments arrive. Each crate contained repaired parts, weapons, food, and medical supplies. She coordinated workers and volunteers, training them in efficiency and speed. She thought about the colony that was destroyed, about families that had vanished, about the silence that remained. She told herself, "We will not let it happen again." In secret, Min-Su drafted a new doctrine for the human war effort. It did not rely on alien tactics. It did not rely on overwhelming firepower. It relied on endurance, adaptability, and willpower. Humans would test enemies in small ways first, then expand. They would attack only when sure they could survive and learn. Their strength was patience. Their weapon was stubbornness. The galaxy had not seen anything like it. June and Hyan met with fleet commanders. They trained new crews not in strategy alone, but in endurance. Simulations involved long, grueling tests. Crews learned to repair systems under fire, to make split-second decisions when logic suggested retreat, to fight when hope seemed gone. They were taught that humans could survive anything, but that meant nothing if they gave up mentally. As months passed, humans took small victories. They did not conquer worlds yet. They tested alien patrols, disrupted supply lines, and returned with minimal losses. Each mission taught them more about alien tactics, but more importantly, it taught them about themselves. Humans learned that when pushed, they could endure more than anyone imagined. In the quiet of the fleet command, June thought about the people on the destroyed colony. He thought about Hana and the engineers, the pilots, the medics, the volunteers. He understood that humanity had been forced to change. That fire and loss had built a new kind of strength, not in weapons, but in the will to survive and adapt. Hana watched a new fleet leave the dock, engines blazing. She did not cheer. She did not smile. She simply nodded. Every ship carried memories of the lost and hope for the future. Every crew carried a determination that would not break. In the distance, alien scouts reported the unexpected human behavior. They did not understand endurance, stubbornness, or will. They measured ships and weapons, but humans were more than machines. Humans were spirit. They were resilience made flesh. The galaxy was beginning to notice. The war had shifted. It was no longer about who could strike the hardest first. It was about who could endure. And humans had already learned how to endure more than any enemy could imagine. The galaxy watched, uneasy, as humanity prepared for the next wave. And in the silence between battles, humans learned that the truest weapon was their refusal to give up. The galaxy had begun to take note of humans, not for their ships, not for their weapons, but for their persistence. Alien fleets that once thought of humans as weak began to worry. Rumors spread among their ranks that humans did not fear death, that humans fought long after defeat seemed certain. They did not understand the concept of human endurance, and they began to make mistakes. June studied intelligence reports in the command center. Systems blinked with activity. Each report was a small victory. Enemy patrols had been disrupted. Supply lines were being cut. Yet no fleet had been destroyed entirely. Humans had learned that wars could be fought slowly, methodically, with observation and patience. Victory did not always come with fire and blood. Sometimes it came by outlasting the opponent. Hyan oversaw a mission to a nearby asteroid field. The humans had discovered that aliens relied on fast strikes and overwhelming force. Hyan's crews moved slowly, hiding ships among the rocks. They waited days, sometimes weeks, for the perfect moment. When the aliens appeared, humans struck with precision, then vanished. No fleet could predict where humans would be, or when they would strike next. In the midst of planning and strategy, Yuna continued her work. Hospitals in the fleet were constantly full, and she had no time for rest. Pilots returned with broken bodies and spirits, yet they came back to fight again. Yuna marveled at their resilience. She thought of the colony that had been destroyed, of families lost, and realized that humans did not fight for glory. They fought because to survive was to resist forgetting. Every life saved was a promise fulfilled, every recovery a statement to the galaxy. Minsu studied the patterns of the aliens and began to share new insights. He discovered that their enemies broke quickly when they faced an opponent who refused to yield. Human fleets had begun small engagements to test weaknesses. They learned the limits of alien endurance. By understanding the enemy, humans could avoid unnecessary losses. Each small victory taught them more about patience and strategy. In one particular campaign, humans trapped an alien fleet near a gas giant. The aliens expected an easy victory. They thought humans would scatter. Instead, human ships formed a tight formation, braving storms of plasma fire and energy beams. Systems failed, but crews adapted. They patched hulls in real time, rerouted power, and fought even when hope seemed lost. By the time the battle ended, the aliens were exhausted and confused. They had learned that numbers alone could not defeat humans. On the ground, civilians contributed in ways that mattered. Engineers reinforced critical infrastructure, keeping the fleet running even when attacks continued. Volunteers trained to manage supplies, maintain equipment, and support the wounded. Even children helped in small ways, learning skills that would be vital for survival. Humanity's strength was no longer in technology alone, but in the will of every person to endure, adapt, and contribute. Hana led a team to repair a fleet that had been damaged during a prolonged engagement. The ship's engines were partially destroyed, weapons offline, and communication systems broken. The team worked tirelessly. They repaired, reinforced, and upgraded every system. When the ship returned to duty, it was stronger than before, a testament to human determination. The aliens began to notice strange patterns. Humans did not retreat. They did not panic. Ships fought long after sustaining what would have destroyed any other fleet. Pilots returned to action again and again, learning from every failure. The aliens realized that humans treated war differently. Humans saw it not as a way to kill quickly, but as a test of willpower. Every engagement was a lesson, every retreat a preparation, every victory a foundation for the next challenge. June coordinated with Hyan, Minsu, and other commanders. They planned not for speed, but for endurance. Missions were long. Crews were trained to think, adapt, and persist. No engagement was wasted. Even losses became a source of knowledge. The galaxy had never seen a species turn suffering into strategy. In the heat of another battle, a pilot named Jisoo led a squadron against an alien blockade. Their ships were damaged, engines failing, shields flickering. Yet Jisoo pushed forward, not for victory alone, but to protect a convoy of civilians caught in the crossfire. Enemy fire struck relentlessly, but Jisoo's squadron held position, defending the convoy. By the time reinforcements arrived, the aliens had retreated. Surprised by human tenacity, every engagement strengthened the legend of humans. Across the galaxy, whispers began. Alien soldiers spoke in fear of humans who could fight endlessly, who could repair and return, who did not bend under pressure. Humans became known as the species that could not be broken. Their endurance was terrifying. Their will was a weapon. Back on human worlds, everyday life mirrored the endurance seen in battle. Factories ran day and night. Ships were repaired and improved. Scientists worked tirelessly to develop better systems. Civilians prepared for emergencies, trained for survival, and supported every mission. Every person became a part of the war effort, whether they were on the front lines or on the homeworlds. Humanity's strength was collective, growing with every challenge. June walked through the fleet, watching crews train. Each pilot, each engineer, each medic contributed. No one was exempt. Every individual understood the importance of persistence. Every ship and every person became part of a greater force. The fleet was not just a collection of machines. It was the embodiment of human will. Hannah oversaw repairs on another damaged vessel. Her hands were calloused, her uniform stained with oil and sweat. Yet she felt a quiet pride. Every repair she made, every improvement she implemented, contributed to the human cause. The galaxy would not know her name, but her work mattered. Humanity's strength lay not only in leaders and warriors, but in the countless individuals who endured quietly, tirelessly. Una treated another group of wounded pilots. She saw the same determination she had witnessed countless times before. Despite pain, they returned to fight. Despite loss, they continued. Humanity's spirit could not be extinguished. The aliens did not understand this. They measured humans with numbers, weapons, and technology, but they could not measure resilience, courage, or will. Min Su continued to analyze alien patterns. He discovered that human endurance was changing the enemy's behavior. Alien fleets became cautious, hesitant, and fearful. They learned to respect humans not for their power, but for their ability to survive, adapt, and persist. Each small victory for humans was a lesson in willpower for their enemies. The war had entered a new phase. Humans no longer relied solely on speed or firepower. They relied on patience, endurance, and adaptability. Every mission, every engagement, every repair, and every training session strengthened them. Humanity was no longer a weak species at the edge of space. They were a force to be feared, not for what they could destroy, but for what they could endure. As June watched another fleet depart for a distant engagement, he felt a quiet satisfaction. Not because of victories, but because humans had become something greater. They had learned to endure, to adapt, and to persist. They had learned that survival was not about avoiding pain, but about overcoming it. The galaxy would soon understand that humans were not to be underestimated. They were relentless, unyielding, and unstoppable when pushed. And in the silence between battles, humans prepared for the challenges ahead, ready to test the limits of endurance, will, and survival. Humanity had grown stronger with each engagement. The galaxy had begun to tremble at their name. What frightened other species most was not the power of human weapons, but the resolve of humans themselves. Humanity's patience, endurance, and adaptability made them unpredictable and dangerous. June stood on the bridge of a massive fleet ship, watching a holographic map of enemy territories. They had pushed into the core systems of the alien coalition. Every system they approached was heavily defended, yet humans moved steadily, not recklessly. Each attack was measured. Each withdrawal was deliberate. Every action was a test, a lesson, a demonstration of unyielding while Hyan led a mission into a particularly hostile sector. Her squadron flew through a dense asteroid field, pursued by alien ships. Their engines were partially damaged, and shields were weakening. Yet Hyan refused to retreat. She maneuvered through the obstacles, protecting civilian transports caught in the crossfire. Her squadron followed without hesitation, inspired by her calm courage and unwavering determination. Jisoo, another pilot, joined Hyan's mission with his own squad. Together, they formed a shield around the convoy. Alien fire struck relentlessly, yet the humans held their ground. Systems failed, weapons jammed, and engines sputtered, but the pilots adapted in real time. They repaired what they could, improvised where necessary, and continued to fight. Every second of endurance drained the enemy and reinforced human resolve. On the homeworlds, civilians worked tirelessly to support these missions. Engineers repaired ships, scientists improved systems, and volunteers managed supplies. Every person contributed, understanding that the war was not only fought in space, but also through preparation, resilience, and support. Hana supervised the repairs on a fleet returning from a dangerous campaign. She ensured every system was restored, strengthened, and ready for the next challenge. Yuna treated the wounded with the same intensity and dedication. Pilots returned again and again, refusing to stay in recovery long enough to rest fully. She marveled at their spirit. Each injury healed and returned to duty added to the legend of humanity. The galaxy began to fear not the firepower humans wielded, but the strength of their endurance and the courage to continue fighting when all seemed lost. As humans moved deeper into enemy space, alien commanders became increasingly desperate. They expected humans to strike quickly, to be defeated by losses, to panic when confronted with setbacks. They were wrong. Humans analyzed each failure, learned from it, and returned stronger. Every engagement was an education for humans, a reminder of what could be endured and overcome. Minsu, the strategist, observed the psychological impact on the enemy. Human endurance demoralized alien forces. Fleets hesitated to engage, unsure of how to break humans who refused to yield. Humans did not seek destruction for glory. They sought survival and the defense of their people. Yet, their will made them unstoppable. Alien morale faltered, leading to mistakes, retreats, and surrenders. In a critical engagement, June commanded a fleet approaching a heavily fortified system. The aliens expected human defeat, believing they could destroy ships faster than humans could repair or adapt. The battle raged for days. Human fleets endured waves of attacks. Ships damaged beyond recognition continued to fight, hatched by crews with ingenuity and determination. Civilians assisted in relays, moving supplies and parts under constant threat. The aliens grew frustrated, bewildered, and fearful. Jisoo led daring sorties to protect civilian colonies. Even when isolated, his squadron held positions and defended their people. Enemy commanders could not comprehend the human willingness to risk everything for others. It was not recklessness. It was resolve, courage, and a commitment to protect life at all costs. Each human action communicated a message. Surrender was not an option. Mercy could be given only after complete victory, and the human spirit could not be broken. The legend of humans spread quickly across enemy worlds. Entire alien populations whispered about the relentless species that could fight endlessly, endure unimaginable hardship, and emerge victorious despite overwhelming odds. Some planets surrendered without a fight, hoping to avoid the consequences of challenging humans. Others reinforced defenses, only to discover that humans adapted faster than anticipated. On the ground, engineers and volunteers like Hannah continued to strengthen the infrastructure of the human war effort. Every repaired ship, every upgraded system, every logistical improvement contributed to the growing power of humanity. These efforts ensured that the human fleet could continue to fight, even after suffering what would have been catastrophic losses for any other species. UNA's medical teams worked alongside engineers, coordinating recovery and reintegration of pilots and soldiers into active duty. The synergy between medical care and fleet repair created a cycle of resilience. Humans were learning that endurance was not simply surviving the battle, but ensuring that every individual, every ship, and every system could rise again stronger than before. Minsu continued to study alien behavior, noting the increasing fear and caution among enemy forces. Human patience and adaptability created a psychological advantage as strong as any weapon. Aliens began to overestimate human capabilities, planning cautiously, hesitating in engagements, and even retreating from positions they would have previously held with confidence. Humans had turned endurance into a weapon of psychological warfare. Hyun and Jisoo led a final assault in the sector, targeting a critical supply hub. They flew damaged ships through intense fire, reaching objectives that seemed impossible. The enemy expected surrender at every turn, but human crews pushed forward. Civilians and support teams ensured the fleet had what it needed. Every effort, every risk, every act of courage amplified the human message. We do not break, we do not yield, and we will endure. The battle concluded with a decisive human victory. The alien forces, demoralized and scattered, were forced to retreat. Humanity's strategic patience, combined with relentless endurance and adaptability, had achieved results far beyond the expectations of any enemy commander. Human names became known across the galaxy, whispered with both respect and fear. June looked across the fleet after the engagement. Ships floated in the stars, battered yet intact, crewed by humans who had survived unimaginable ordeals. He saw the determination in their eyes, the resolve to continue, and the understanding that each victory was built on the foundation of endurance. Humanity had become a force that the galaxy would no longer underestimate. Hana observed the return of the fleet, overseeing repairs and upgrades. Her team worked tirelessly, knowing that tomorrow could bring another battle. Every repaired ship, every restored system was a testament to human resilience. Every civilian, every volunteer, every engineer contributed to a growing legend that humans could survive, endure, and overcome where others failed. Yuna cared for the returning wounded, her teams coordinating with engineers to ensure that each pilot could return to duty as quickly as possible. Human medical science, combined with dedication and relentless effort, meant that no loss was permanent. Every person could contribute to the fight again, reinforcing the impression of an unstoppable species. As humans consolidated their gains, the galaxy began to whisper of their strength. Entire alien systems reconsidered opposition. Fear spread not because humans were cruel, but because humans were unstoppable when their will was tested. They showed mercy only after total victory, reinforcing the idea that resistance was dangerous, and submission was sometimes the only choice for survival. June stood on the bridge, watching the stars. He knew the war was far from over. Humanity had proven its endurance, but challenges still lay ahead. Yet he also knew that humans had become something greater, a species that could fight with purpose, endure through unimaginable trials, and emerge victorious when others would have surrendered. And in that knowledge lay the quiet satisfaction of knowing that the galaxy had learned the truth. Humanity was a force to be respected, feared, and never underestimated. The war had finally reached a turning point. Humanity stood at the heart of the galaxy, having pushed the alien coalition back and secured systems that had once been feared as impregnable. The galaxy now knew the truth. Humans were not just resilient, they were unstoppable when driven by survival and will. June surveyed the aftermath from the bridge of his flagship. Ships moved through the stars, some battered, some newly repaired, but all carrying the same unspoken determination. The fleets had endured countless attacks, and every pilot, every crew, every engineer had survived to continue the fight. The galaxy trembled at the human name, not for their weapons, but for their resolve. Hyan led a squadron through a recently liberated sector. They checked for survivors, repaired damaged stations, and ensured that civilians had safe passage. The war had taught humans the value of every life, not just their own. Their mercy was selective, given only after total control was established. It was a warning and a promise. Resistance was costly, and humanity never forgot. Jisoo guided civilians from destroyed worlds to human-protected zones. Children clung to him, terrified yet comforted by his calm presence. Every rescue was a reminder that humans fought not for glory, but to protect their own and to endure injustice without surrendering. Across the galaxy, alien worlds whispered stories of humans who would risk everything for life, making the human threat both feared and respected. On the homeworlds, Hana oversaw the reconstruction of fleets and infrastructure. Every repair, every upgrade, every improvement was a statement. Humans would not only survive, they would be stronger after every challenge. Engineers and volunteers worked tirelessly, motivated by a shared understanding that survival required effort, resilience, and unity. Humans were learning to endure in ways the galaxy had never seen. Yuna treated the final waves of wounded from recent battles. She reflected on the countless lives saved and returned to action. Pilots, engineers, and soldiers recovered and returned to the fight, their resilience forming the backbone of human strength. Every healed body, every restored mind, every recovered ship reinforced the human message. Endurance was humanity's greatest weapon. Min-Su analyzed the psychological impact on the remaining alien forces. Entire populations and fleets, had surrendered upon seeing the relentless human advance. Alien commanders, once confident in their superiority, now hesitated, feared, and calculated carefully. Humanity had turned the war into a demonstration of willpower. Not raw force, but persistence, adaptability, and resolve were what defined human power. A final campaign was launched to secure the last alien strongholds. June coordinated with Haiyan Jisoo and other fleet leaders. Ships moved in precise formations, enduring attacks that would have destroyed other species. Crews patched damage in real time, adapted to unexpected obstacles, and pressed forward without hesitation. Civilians and engineers supported the fleet tirelessly, ensuring that no loss was permanent. Every human act contributed to the unstoppable momentum. In one decisive engagement, human forces penetrated deep into a heavily defended system. Alien fleets tried to ambush them, but humans adapted, using endurance as a weapon. Damaged ships fought on. Pilots improvised maneuvers. Engineers repaired systems mid-battle. Every setback became an opportunity. The enemy, exhausted and demoralized, eventually surrendered, unable to comprehend the human capacity to endure and adapt. Humanity had proven its dominance, not through brutality alone, but through unyielding will. Across the galaxy, humans established control over liberated systems. They did not seek to oppress, but to ensure that the devastation inflicted upon human colonies would not happen again. Monuments were built to honor both the dead and the survivors, a reminder of the cost of war and the strength needed to endure it. Humanity's legend spread, a mixture of respect, fear, and admiration. June reflected on the journey that had brought them here. From fragile border colonies to the heart of the galaxy, humanity had endured every challenge. They had suffered losses, faced impossible odds, and yet continued forward. It was not the weapons that defined them, nor the size of their fleets. It was their spirit, their refusal to break, and their commitment to survive and protect life at all costs. Hana watched a new fleet prepare for deployment, knowing that the galaxy had learned the truth. Humans were not weak, they were relentless. Every ship, every engineer, every volunteer contributed to a force that could not be destroyed by conventional means. The human legacy had been forged through suffering endurance. An unwavering will. Yuna cared for the wounded returning from the final campaigns. She saw hope in their eyes, courage in their movements, and determination that mirrored the stories of the first attacks on their border colonies. Humans had turned loss into strength, pain into learning, and suffering into resolve. The galaxy had come to understand that when humanity was pushed to the edge, they did not break. They grew stronger. Min-Su reviewed the psychological impact once more. Alien forces had learned that humans were different. They did not retreat when faced with destruction. They did not surrender when hope was lost. Every battle had reinforced a truth that the galaxy could not ignore. Humans were enduring, adaptive, and unstoppable when their survival was threatened. The war had ended, but peace was uneasy. Humanity had become the dominant power, respected and feared across the stars. They ruled not through constant violence, but through the knowledge that any force that challenged them would face relentless endurance, unwavering resolve, and unmatched willpower. The galaxy now knew that humanity's spirit was the ultimate weapon. June stood once more on the bridge of his flagship, looking at the stars. The galaxy had learned the lesson the humans had always known. To survive, to endure, and to protect life, one must be willing to endure anything. Humanity had shown what it meant to be unbroken, to fight with patience and persistence, and to become more than any enemy had expected. Hana Yuna, and the countless others who had contributed to the war, watched as humans consolidated their victories. They had not sought glory, but they had achieved it. Not through domination, but through endurance and will. Humanity's name had become a symbol, a warning, and a promise to the galaxy. And in that quiet, tense peace, the galaxy understood that if humanity were ever pushed again, the response would be even more terrible. The legend was complete. A war so savage, the galaxy now trembled at humanity's name. Not because humans loved war, but because they never forgot it, and they never, ever gave up.